Lesson 5.NF.5b is understanding the effect of multiplying by a fraction. So if you multiply something by a fraction, is it going to get bigger, smaller, or is it going to stay the same? That's what we're trying to figure out. Okay, so if, for instance, if you take something like 1/3 and multiply it by 7/8, is that going to equal a number bigger than 1/3, smaller, or the same? So the vocabulary word for today is comparison. A comparison is a statement that shows which is bigger or which is smaller. It comes from the word compare. So whenever you compare something, you make a comparison. 2 is greater than 1/2. That is a comparison. I'm comparing these two numbers. Okay, put these notes down. To understand the effect of multiplying by a fraction, first, decide if the fraction is less than 1, equal to 1, or greater than 1. So that means you need to know which fractions are less than 1, which are equal to, and which are greater. So fractions that are less than 1 are where the numerator is smaller than the denominator, like 2/5. That is less than 1. Okay? Equal to 1 are fractions where the numerator and denominator are the same, like 3/3. That's equal to 1 whole. Greater than 1 are when it's an improper fraction, when the numerator is bigger than the denominator, like 8/7. Okay, so you first have to decide, are you multiplying by a number that's less than 1, equal to 1, or greater than 1? Okay, once you know that, if it's less than 1, you're finding a part of a number, so the product will be smaller than the number you are multiplying by. For instance, the less than example would be 2/5 times any other number. It could be a whole number or a fraction. Let's just say a fraction. 2/5 times 1/4. And I want to know, is that answer going to be bigger or smaller than 1/4? Well, this is smaller than 1 whole. So I'm going to be finding 2/5 of 1/4. I'm finding part of 1/4. So it's going to be smaller than 1/4. Okay? Now, if I was multiplying 3/3 times 1/4, that's the same as multiplying by 1. So that is going to actually keep it the same. So if the fraction is equal to 1, the product will be the same as the number you're multiplying. So in this case, I'm multiplying by 3/3. So 1/4 will still equal 1/4. Okay? So the last example, or the last part of your notes, would be if the fraction is greater than 1, the product will be larger than the number you're multiplying. So if I'm multiplying 8/7 times 1/4, I'm going to get an answer larger than 1/4 because I'm multiplying by something more than 1. That means I have more than one of those. I have 1/4 more than one time. So that means it's going to be greater. So if you look back at these three examples, the first one will give you an answer smaller than the number you're multiplying by. The next one will give you an answer the same as what you're multiplying by. And the last one will give you an answer that is greater. And I know I didn't say it, but in the second example, 3/3 times 1/4 equals 1/4. Okay? That's what I mean when I say the same. All right, so here's an example. Fill in the blanks with a fraction. Okay, so 1/2 times some fraction will equal a number less than 1/2. What fraction can you multiply 1/2 by to get an answer smaller than 1/2? All I have to do is pick a number less than 1 whole. Okay? So I'm going to say 1/3. 1/2 times 1/3 would equal a number less than 1/2. Second example. 1/2 times something will equal a number greater than 1/2. So if I want an answer greater than 1/2, I'm going to have to multiply by something greater than 1, like 4/3. I know that's greater than 1 because the numerator is bigger than the denominator. That's more than 1 whole. Last one. 1/2 times some number will equal a number equal to 1/2. So how do I keep it the same? I multiply it by 1 whole. So I could choose any fraction that is equal to 1 whole. So I'm going to choose 5/5. The numerator is the same as the denominator. That's going to actually be equal to 1/2. All right, extra examples. Don't write these down, but do pay attention. Look at each expression shown. Compare the product of each expression to 6. And we're going to put each of those expressions in one of the boxes. So, 6 times 4/4. I'm looking at the first one. I'm looking at this one. 6 times 4/4, that will stay the same. That will be equal to 6 because 4/4 is equal to 1. And 6 times 1 is 6. Okay, 6 times 2/4. 2/4 is less than 1 whole. That means that 6 is going to get smaller. And the last one, 6 times 7/4. 7/4 is more than 1 whole, so that's going to go there. So I should probably write the expressions in. So 6 times 2/4 goes here. 6 times 4/4 goes here. And 6 times 7/4 goes here. That's not 4. I was testing you. 7/4. Okay. Part 1 of the next example. There are 4 buckets. This chart shows the bucket sizes and the amount they hold in gallons. Okay? So we've got bucket 1, a bucket size 2, size 3, and size 4. Luis fills 5 buckets of the same size. He has a total amount of 5 gallons of water. Which bucket size does Luis use? So if he fills 5 buckets, and they each have some amount, you would multiply 5 times that amount to get the total, and his total is 5. Well, 5 times what makes 5? 5 times 1 makes 5. Which of those fractions is equal to 1 whole? 8/8. So the bucket size is size 2. Part 2. When you multiply a whole number by something, select all of the options that complete the statement. All right. So when you multiply a whole number by, let's look at the first option, a fraction equal to 1, the product is less than the whole number. No, it would be the same. That's multiplying by 1 keeps the number the same. That is not the correct answer. Next one. When you multiply a whole number by a fraction less than 1, the product is greater than the whole number? No, the product would be smaller. Let's look at the next one. A fraction, when you multiply a whole number by a fraction greater than 1, the product is greater than the whole number? Correct. Multiplying by something larger than 1 makes something bigger. And last one. When you multiply a fraction equal to 1, the product equals the whole number. Yes, when you multiply by 1, the number equals itself. It stays the same. That is correct. Okay, it's time for your quick check. Fill in the blanks with a fraction. You can put in any fraction that works. There's a bunch that would. So see you once you get the answers. Good luck.